For the hastening of the reappearance of the Imam of our time, please recite aloud salawat. So we may be among his companions and he accepts us as his lovers. Please recite another loud salawat. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا مولانا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. First and foremost, we thank Allah for giving us another opportunity to get together again. It feels like it's been too long. I definitely missed everyone here. We pray that whatever is said and heard in these sessions helps us gain proximity towards Him, helps us gain proximity towards the Ahlul Bayt, helps us gain proximity to the Imam of our time, inshaAllah. In our previous talk, we started speaking about taqwa. We began by looking at trying to understand what the correct definition of taqwa is. And the conclusion that we reached in the previous discussion was that taqwa is supposed to be something that protects you in a way that you can go into the midst of all the problems that exist and not only stay protected yourself, but also you're able to help others. What this shows is that taqwa is supposed to be there regardless of the surroundings. Regardless of any external factors, taqwa is always supposed to be there. Regardless of whether you're in the midst of the problems or you find yourself in a more comfortable environment at that time. The point is that we understand from that external factors don't affect whether or not you have taqwa. Taqwa is there all the time. That's what we understand. Another way to understand taqwa, or another dimension to taqwa, is remembering that, look, when we're saying it's not external factors which decide whether you have taqwa or not, what are we saying in reality? It's something which comes from within, right? Taqwa is something which comes from within. It's a force which helps to protect you. Now, unfortunately, for a lot of people, it's almost always throughout their lives the external factors which help protect them. Internally, they have no drive or motivation or understanding of how to protect themselves. Almost exclusively throughout their lives, it's external factors which limit them, which protect them. For example, we may stop at traffic lights because if we don't, then the local authorities will take a picture of the number plate and they'll send us a fine through the post. We may slow down near speeding cameras because, again, for the same reason, you're afraid that the police might see me or there'll be a picture taken and I'll have to pay a penalty, right? Why am I not speeding? Why am I stopping at red lights? Because of external reasons, right? Not because I have this internal drive or internal understanding that these things need to be done. No, it's because of the fear of things which are external to us that we do those things. For example, like when you're working, I see many of you have probably not reached the age of working yet, but I've seen it in different offices. When you enter, you like swipe your card and it registers the time that you've come in. And as you're leaving, you swipe your card and it registers the time that you've gone. And like at the end of every week or the end of every month, they calculate how many hours you worked, and then you'll get paid in accordance with that. One day the machine's not working. You come in and there's a paper there, and it says write in like when you entered, and then when you're leaving, just like sign off, right? And write in the time that you've left. If someone does not understand, if someone does not have the internal force to do good, and they were only putting in the right times because of that machine that existed over there, then in such a situation, what do you think they'll do? If the police didn't exist, if those cameras didn't exist, would they still stop at the red lights? Would they still go slow? Understanding why that needs to be done, for example. All of these things that I've mentioned, they stop us from doing something wrong. Taqwa is the internal motivator that protects us and makes us do the right thing even when there is nothing in the external stopping us. Taqwa is there when you're alone in your room, and taqwa is there when you're within society. There's another thing, for example, why do I pray? Because if I don't pray, then the community I belong to, the family I belong to, they will look at me like badly, for example. That's why I pray. Again, there's an external motivator for you to even carry out something which is Islamic, right? That's not sign of having taqwa. The sign of having taqwa is regardless of which society you find yourself in, regardless of what surroundings you find yourself in, you will pray. And when are you tested? When it's nearly time that your prayers will be qadha, there's no mosque or anything around, and the only place you can pray, for example, is a park, right? When the pressure is the opposite, you're afraid, like, okay, I don't know what people, they'll look at me, they'll think, strange stuff about me. So the external motivators in that situation would be pushing you away from praying, right? That's when you can test yourself and see whether you have that internal motivator in you which would still push you towards praying, right? Because you understand that this is an obligation which you need to carry out. That's what taqwa is. I do not speed because I believe in it. I do not go through red lights because I understand that it's there for our protection. I pray and I carry out my other acts of worship because I understand that this is what my responsibility is at the moment. And remember, it's people who have this internal motivator. It's people who have this taqwa that the Quran will guide. Remember what he said? Surah Baqarah, 2nd verse. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. This is a book in which are no doubts, and it's a guidance for who? Those who have taqwa. Those who have this internal motivation. If you do not have this internal motivation and you only do things because of the external pressures which are there for you, then according to the Quran, it's going to have no effect on you. It's not going to lead towards your guidance. It's a promise of, these are words of God. It's not a random person walking on the street who just said, hey, guess what? If you don't have taqwa, then the Quran will have no effect on you. This is God speaking to you. He's telling you that if you do not have taqwa, this internal motivator, this right understanding of what taqwa is, then this book, this whole series that inshallah we're planning to do, we can do this 10 times over. But unless we are building that internal motivation within us to do good and stay away from bad, then this whole series will have no effect on us. Even though from start to finish it's from the Quran. It's looking at our belief system from the Quran. So it's something that we should be wary of. We also mentioned that one of the ways the Quran makes us understand different concepts like taqwa, like iman, like tawassul, tawakkul, all of these different concepts, is rather than giving us dictionary definitions, it presents us examples, right? It brings us closer to the reality of these concepts, as opposed to saying, for example, taqwa equals so on and so forth. Right? So at the moment, what the Quran is going to do is it's going to go through the virtues of the muttaqin, right? The virtues of the muttaqin. Do you want to know? Do you want to know what taqwa is? Right? This is how I'm going to explain it to you. And again, as I mentioned before, that a lot of the times we think, okay, like we've heard these verses before, right? But as I said, like the understanding, the explanation that is presented over here is something unique, and inshallah we can all benefit from it accordingly. So we're going to look at Surah Al Imran, verse 132. Surah Al Imran, verse 132. So it's speaking about the muttaqeen over here. وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. Right? Who are the muttaqeen? They are those who obey Allah and the Apostle. Why do they do that? So that they may be among those who gain the mercy of Allah. Right? A verse we've heard plenty of times. We've heard the phrase ita'a so many times in the Quran. Obedience, obedience, obedience. Okay? And we've heard like mercy of Allah so many times throughout the Quran. Like Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Right? So many times you've heard it. This is going to change how you see both of these things. Firstly, just to open bracket, why does Allah throughout the Quran mention Allah and the Prophet together? Say, Ati Allah wa Rasulah. Why does He repeatedly bring these two together? The historic reasoning for this is there was a time when the Prophet would say something and other people would challenge him, saying that, okay, well, we are also the servants of Allah and this is your understanding. Well, this is what we believe, for example. So Allah repeatedly throughout the Quran brings the Prophet together, the obedience of himself and the Prophet together, to show the people that no, if you want to obey me, you have to obey the Prophet. In fact, there is no difference, to the extent it's not even ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasulah. No, it's ati'u Allah wa Rasulah. Like no space is given if you just want to look at it from the grammatical perspective. It's the stress that you cannot say that, no. If I want to obey Allah, I can do it without listening to the Prophet. No. You have to listen to the Prophet to get to Allah. Both of them have to be together. What is ita'ah itself though? Close brackets. What is ita'ah itself? Generally, when we think of obedience, the thing that comes to our mind is making sure we carry out our obligations and staying away from sins. Okay? If we want to be more specific, it would mean something like making sure you're praying 5 times a day, making sure you're fasting, making sure you're not eating haram food, for example. If I'm doing all these things, I'm being obedient. Is this what ita'ah means? If you look at Surah Nisa, Surah Nisa, verse 65, it says, "But no, by your Lord, they will not believe until they make you a judge in their disputes. Then do not find in their hearts any dissent to your verdict and submit in full submission." Right? What does that mean? This obedience that we're talking about, this ita'ah, It's not just your 5 days of prayers, no. Rather, obedience is when you place the Prophet and Allah as the authority within your life. That's what ita'ah is. That means all other responsibilities that you have. For example, responsibilities that you have towards yourself, responsibilities that you have towards your brothers, responsibilities that you have towards your family, your community, and so on and so forth, right? All of these things become included in ita'ah. So if someone is just carrying out their daily obligations, for example, their 5 prayers and, for example, fasting, however, they're not taking care of their relations with those around them, they're not placing Allah as the authority within every aspect of their life, then this does not come in to the definition of ita'ah. Not only that, it doesn't just say place Allah and the Prophet in every aspect of your life. It goes even further than that. It stresses that even in those judgments which they may pass that you don't like. Right? Sometimes everyone is okay with following the religion because it seems to suit everything that they do. But as soon as it asks them to come out of their comfort zone, do something which they would not necessarily naturally do, what happens? They become quiet. They're like, oh, maybe not. Right? No, being obedient means that you follow them in everything, even when it doesn't suit you, even when you don't like it. That's what ita'ah is. And that's the true test of ita'ah. When that judgment is passed against you by them. Right? This doesn't mean that the Prophet has to be here right now and he listens to your issues and then he passes a judgment. No. What this is saying is that in everything that you do, place the Prophet there. And through that, work out what you're supposed to do. And do it even if you don't like it. Even if in the apparent, you think it's going against you. So, the verse says, أَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. Right? You have a slightly better idea of what this ita'ah is. Turhamun. Obey Allah and the Prophet so you may be among those who gain Allah's mercy. When I came across this discussion the first time, I don't think anything has affected me more from a book than this specific discussion. And you'll see why. What does mercy mean? Right? So obey Allah and the Prophet so you may be among those who gain the mercy of Allah. What does mercy mean? Generally what people think is, look, if you commit a sin, don't worry, Allah is merciful, He'll forgive you. That's generally what we understand. That's generally how we use mercy, right? If you commit a sin, you make mistakes, don't worry. Allah is merciful and He'll forgive you. How did we reach this conclusion? Between us, what we would see is, for example, there's a person who hits his friend, right? There's a person who insults his friend. And we realize that this friend, he does get upset, but he very quickly forgives him. Because we see that he's forgiven him, we say to ourselves, look, he's merciful, right? That's how we generally see it. Like if someone quickly forgives, then we're like, okay, this person is merciful. We took this and kind of placed it on God. Because we're like this between ourselves, that you hit someone, you ask for forgiveness and the person is like, I forgive you. Okay, look, mashallah, he's so merciful, right? We saw this and we kind of placed it on God. God is like the most merciful, right? So don't worry if you commit a sin, inshallah, God will forgive you. Is it that simple? Doesn't make sense if it was that simple. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find this tradition myself to give you the details of the story. But I've heard it plenty of times, both from my teachers and other speakers have said it as well. One of the Ma'sumin, he found out that there's a thief who would steal from the rich and he would give it to the poor. And he would also use Islam to justify his actions. So one day this thief came in the presence of one of the Ma'sumin and he asked him, the Ma'sumin asked the thief, what is your justification for, whatever you're doing? And his response was, have you not heard the Prophet? Aren't you from the family of the Prophet? Have you not heard what he said? That every time you do something good, you get 40 rewards. And every time you do something bad, you get 10 punishments, right? So if you take 40 rewards and you take away 10 punishments, I still get 30 rewards. So it's all good, right? What was the response? The Ma'sumin said, the reason why I'm saying that is because I don't remember exactly which Imam it was. He responded by saying, have you not heard the Prophet who said, sins to deeds are like fire to dry wood? How is fire to dry wood? Just put it close to it, the whole thing will burn before you can even think about stopping it. You commit a sin, it destroys your good deeds, finishes them, start from scratch. That's what sins do. Hang on a second, if sins are that serious, then is it really as easy as, well, God's merciful, you sin, don't worry, He'll forgive you? Doesn't make sense. Why do we have such scary traditions about what sins are, and then we have this understanding about the mercy of God? There's a very beautiful clip of Ayatollah Khamenei in which he's speaking about sins, right? He's explaining what sins are. And he says, when it comes to spiritual development, the primary thing you need to look after is avoiding sins. Avoid sins. That's the primary thing. Everything else is secondary. Everything else. All your mustahabat, all your, everything that you may do as a religious act, which is technically everything in life, inshallah, that is secondary. The primary thing is avoiding sin, because if you're not avoiding sins, you can do whatever you want. You just need to sin, and that's it. You've dropped a match into that dry wood. And everything is destroyed. Again, whoa, that's a very serious kind of understanding of what sin is. And it's scary. If I'm not mistaken, you guys were previously going through the book, The Greater Sins. So you guys have an idea of some of the traditions which exist. Really, that's what sins are. And again, we come back to our understanding of what mercy is. Now, I'm about to scare you guys. At the same time, I'm hoping that I can get to the part of our discussion which brings back some hope again for the likes of myself, who are sinners, who do make mistakes. Brothers, what did the verse say? Those who obey Allah, those who obey the Prophet, they may receive the mercy of Allah. What does that mean? That means those who obey, those who do not commit sins, those who carry out all their obligations, those who do not make mistakes, those people may receive the mercy of Allah. For them, it's not guaranteed. Where does that leave us? Where does that leave us? Do I need to stress that more? For them, it's not guaranteed. Those who do everything. Where does that leave someone like myself, as I said, who sins, who makes these mistakes? Am I supposed to just give up? Shut up shop? Scary. All of a sudden you realize, do you know what? I think I misunderstood what sinning is. I think I misunderstood what asking for forgiveness is. I think I misunderstood what mercy is. This verse was always in harmony of showing us how dangerous sins are. Because it's talking about those who do not commit sins. So it was always in harmony of showing us how dangerous sins are. Who created us? Allah. Who knows us better than ourselves? Allah. Who knows right now we're really worried because of this verse? Allah. This is the beauty of the Quran. Before you were like, okay, I understand this verse. What does this have to do with the next verse? What's the next verse in Surah Al Imran? So this finishes, أَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. The next verse, 133. وَصَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ. Allah knows we're worried right now. So the next discussion he brings on is what? About forgiveness. Subhanallah. But again, what does that mean? We've just dashed all our hopes of gaining Allah's mercy, and now we're saying, وَصَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ. Again, it's these delicate points which help us gain the correct understanding of these different concepts, so that when we pursue them, we're pursuing them properly. If you do not understand something, if you do not understand what you're trying to achieve, even when you think you've got there, how do you know that is what you were trying to achieve? You need to understand what that is first, right? So the question is there, like, okay, then what is sinning? What is maghfirah? Like, it's already been answered. وَالصَّارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ. What does that mean? Hasten towards maghfirah. Hasten towards maghfirah. How does this answer our question? Why doesn't Allah say, go towards forgiveness? Walk towards forgiveness. Or just, I don't know, like crawl towards forgiveness. Why does he specifically say hasten towards forgiveness? What is this trying to tell us? This is trying to tell us that don't think after you've committed a sin that you can just place no effort and you're going to get forgiveness. No. If you want forgiveness, what do you need to do? You have to hasten towards it. You have to put in some effort. You can't continue going on the same speed. For example, I am someone who listens to Dua Kumail every Thursday. I've committed a sin. What do? Well, I'm going to Dua Kumail anyway, so it will all be sorted. No, because that Dua Kumail for you is not extra effort. That's something that you are doing anyway. Now you've committed a sin, you need to hasten towards maghfirah. You need to do something which comes about through effort. Please recite a salawat. So what does that mean? Okay, we need to put in some effort, right? Al-Khamnai compares maghfirah to the filling up of an empty hole, right? Maghfirah is the filling up of an empty hole. He says, look at it from this way. When you commit a sin, it's like you've stabbed yourself, right? Taken a knife and you stabbed yourself. Now, if you do not put in any extra effort, you have a big wound right there. If you do not put in any extra effort, you just, okay, I have a wound there. Or the only effort you put in, for example, is like you just kind of go like that, right? Is that wound going to heal? No. You need to clean the blood properly. You need to disinfect it. You need to wrap a band-aid around it, or a plaster. I'm not sure what they call it in Denmark. And then after a couple of days, you need to open it up again. Then you need to clean it, disinfect it, and then wrap it up again. You need to put in that extra effort. That's what sinning is like. Like once you've sinned, you can't just not put in extra effort and expect it to just heal. Right? No, you have to put in that extra effort. Another example that he uses is that of a car. You are supposed to reach this destination in 1 hour. On the way, you decide that you're going to go to the service station and you end up spending 15 minutes there. Are you still going to reach that destination in 1 hour if you continue going at the same speed that you were going before? No. You have to put in extra effort. You need to go quicker. You need to make sure you don't do any other stops for you to be able to reach that destination in that 1 hour. That's what maghfirah is. It's that filling up of that empty hole. It's that healing of the wound. It's that reaching that destination at the time that you were going to, that you were supposed to. Now, putting in effort, what does that mean? Have you guys all heard of Shaheed Malcolm X? I'm presuming, okay? Very special person. I strongly, strongly recommend you guys read his life story. There's a lot of lessons to be learned from his life. And as you know, his only living grandson was a Shia, and he was about to come to the Hawza in Qom before he was taken out, but we're not going to go into that for the moment. He has something in his autobiography which is so powerful. He says, the most difficult thing I had found in my life, I had done everything. Like, as you know, before he became a Muslim, he was into gangs, drugs, violence, like all of these things, right? And he used to live in one of the most dangerous parts of America at that time. What does he say? He said, the most difficult thing I had ever done in my life was to go into prostration. Sometimes that prostration, the effort it takes for you to make that prostration is sufficient for you to gain your maghfirah. But sometimes someone can read Dua Joshan Kabir, right? But they won't be able to attain it. Why? Because it's not extra effort for them. It was something that they would do anyway. That is what is expected if you want to gain maghfirah, that extra effort. That is, and how did we derive all of this? Just from the word hasten towards forgiveness. That's it. One of the most beautiful things about the discussions of Ayatollah Khamenei, and you also see this in the books of Shaheed Sadr, is a lot of the time the conclusions that they are presenting are not based upon deep philosophical calculations and like deep points in Arabic grammar. No. You realize that the conclusions that they are reaching is as a result of them just sitting down and thinking about what's in front of them. Why does it say hasten towards maghfirah? Why doesn't it just say walk towards maghfirah, for example? Did we just have a very deep philosophical discussion? Did I have to go through different stages of logic, for example, different stages of Arabic grammar for us to understand what he's saying? No. That's how far contemplation can take you. Just thinking a bit made these people who they are. And just to put the stamp on this discussion, this stress that, look, it's not enough for you to just not put in any effort and expect to gain maghfirah. If you look at Surah Taha, verse 82, what does it say? وَإِنِّي لَغَفَّارٌ لَمَنْ تَابَ وَآمَنَ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا ثُمَّ اهْتَدَى. Right? Indeed, I forgive those who do what? Who repent, become faithful, act righteously, and follow guidance. What does that mean? That means that if you just repent, He's not going to forgive you. You need to be faithful, you need to act righteously, and follow guidance. Like, there's effort involved. We can go into each and every one of those and open that up, and it could take a very long time, but the point that we're deriving from this is what? It's not enough to not put in any effort. No. That is what's expected of you. Please recite a salawat. I feel like the next part of the discussion, if I open it up, then it will take more time above that which I think will be healthy for this discussion to remain healthy. So I'm going to stop myself here.